guys, it's Michael Lennox. As I promised, let's talk about my AC225. Now, if you want to know more generally about this kind of welder, I have done a video about this, so check that out. But today, I'm going to talk about this welder specifically, how I got it, how I restored it, and how it's functioning now. Now, about a year ago, I really wanted one of these welders, so I was searching everywhere for one. I finally found one on Gumtree for 150 Australian dollars. Now, the seller lived too far away for us to drive there, so I ended up getting it delivered, which cost another $150. When I was opening it up, I was immediately greeted with the 32 amp plug that I was completely not expecting, and that made my heart sink. That meant that I had to get a dedicated 32 amp socket put in my house, and that cost an extra $400, making the total come up to $700. The welding cables were also in pretty rough shape. The insulation on the outside of the wire had worn down in heaps of spots, so there was the wire exposed. So I could tell these needed replacing. The ground clamp and stinger were also in pretty rough shape too. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the stinger, but you can get an idea of what they look like by that. The stinger looked like it had been dropped plenty of times, and I definitely needed replacing. The paint on the outside had started peeling off, and it was very old. It was probably the original coat that it had. Now, before any of that, I needed to check that it was working, so I plugged it in and turned it on, and it definitely did turn on, which I was very thankful of. Hey, first time switching on. Awesome. The welder was running just how I expected, which was good, but a couple weeks after I purchased it, it started making a rattling noise, which really concerned me, and it started tripping the breaker at a lot lower amperages than it used to. Even though this welder really needed some attention, it was another year before I finally got around to it. The first thing I did before restoring this was just cut the old electrical cables off, because they needed replacing entirely. Taking it apart was easy enough. It's just got a bunch of bolts and screws in it, so I just loosened those and hoped for the best. Once I opened it up, I realized there was plenty of stuff in there that shouldn't be. There were plenty of leaves, cobwebs, loose wires, and dust everywhere. So I cleaned all that stuff out and used my air compressor just to blow that stuff out. Opening the welder up gave me an opportunity to see what was wrong with the welder. And I figured out that it was the bearing in the fan that cools the transformers in this welder that had worn down, which was thankfully a minor issue compared to what it could have been. Because I knew this welder needed a new paint job, while it was apart, I sanded all the old paint off. Once I put it back together, I taped up all the parts that I didn't want to get paint on, and I gave it a primer coat and then a final top coat. I made really sure to get the high quality paint because I really want this paint to last. I didn't do a perfect job painting this, and there are some drip marks, but they're barely noticeable. You can see the drip marks there, but you can't really see it when you stand back. After putting the welder back on the stand, I was very happy, but now I just needed to replace the leads. Instead of replacing the entire leads, what I opted to do was just put DINS connectors on them so I could use some of my other stingers and ground clamps. Using DINS connectors instead of cables on this machine makes the storage of this welder a lot easier because I don't have to wrap all three cables around it. The ground clamp, the stinger, and the electrical cable. If you're wondering why I don't have the polarity marked on here, it's because this is an AC machine, meaning that it's both of the polarities half of the time, so I can just hook the electrode up to either of these and it'll be the same. This is now my favorite and most used welder that I have. Every time I need to stick weld, I use this one, and stick welding makes up almost all of my welding. So in the end, this machine ended up costing me about $800. In my opinion, well worth it. I'd buy it again in a heartbeat. It's just nothing on the market compares to the quality of these older transformer machines. So if you're a person who's okay with getting your hands dirty and fixing things, a used AC225 is an excellent purchase. If you aren't, I'm not really sure if welding is the hobby for you. Maybe try sewing. As for me, I do both. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment. Thank you. God bless. Love y'all.